because it's just our shit.
You're trying to make it sound really like
shitty thoughts. Our flatulent thoughts.
Well, they're not shitty. They're flatulent.
They're not shitty, but I'm just saying it's our bullshit.
They're a bit smelly.
I bet you he don't do that.
I bet you he clean up after his puddles.
I bet you he licks her off the toilet. No, that's too far. Too far.
It's a little scatty. Yes. That's a little scatty.
Well, I mean,
Where's the trust? Not the trust. The trust is in my asshole. That's where it's at.
You told me, like, just the first thing that pops in your head.
Welcome back to Flatulent Thoughts Podcast. Once again, I have my special guest today, Jared Skoot Sammons. And once again, you can catch him on Twitch at SK00TN. That's SK00TN. And on his Twitter is the same thing. He is also the co-host of the Crucible Cast podcast. Now, before we start, Skoot. That name, Skoot? Where'd that come from?
It's actually from my grandfather. I grew up in a very like car focused like upbringing. Like some of my earliest memories are working on like an old Stingray Corvette with my grandfather because he always kept like these old restoration mods.
Okay. And
we would go to like car shows and stuff, and we'd see like the burnout contests and stuff. He's like, "Man, that thing's scooting down the road," and I don't know. This is a thing that like stuck. Like that's scooting.
For a city guy like me, and I was fairly born and raised in a city. I don't know nothing else other than a city, and that is the most country hick like the most stereotypical nickname you could have possibly chosen for yourself. Not only because you have an accent, but just the name Skoot. Like it's just I've been thinking about it for a while. Like Jesus Christ, he could have chosen nothing else but Skoot. Like, I mean, I know better. My nickname online is it's no better, but it's one of those things where it's like Jesus Christ. Like the moment you open your mic and you start talking, I'm like, yep, that makes sense. Perfect, Skoot. Yep.
Yeah, it all falls into place, right? Like it's it pays homage to a very special like a very special like father figure in my life, and also like that's like a window into my upbringing. Really, it's like it's a slur, like a big slurry of like.
I was about to say it's not a slur, no.
no. It's a big like a blender, like a big slurry of like old school Americana car culture and video games and just going fast and being loud, and that's the kind of stuff that I grew up
along.
Right, just scooting along, man.
All right, so let's scoot along here, and so we're doing episode 5 today of the Manpisode series, and today we're going to talk about dating, but having the cheat code to life.
Cheat code to life.
Yeah, cheat code to life, and basically. Our last episode, we fucking went in. Like, we fucking...
We went down the rabbit hole.
Yes.
Alice was calling us for directions.
Yes. We took the iPhone map of podcasting. We took Apple Maps, and we didn't know what the hell we were going. But that's what this is about. This is all it's about. But... Today, we're gonna do our best, guys. For you guys listening out there, they're like, oh God, they're gonna go down this whole road again, talking about all the video games. We're gonna do our best to keep it on topic as much as we can. We will apologize if we do get off on a rant. But yeah, here we go.
We're here. This is the episode for the people.
We're gonna
give them the answers they're looking for.
We're gonna scoot along. So I think one thing that we touched on lightly was that whole concept of being a gamer, but the stigma that's attached to that of being a gamer. And then we mentioned the whole South Park episode,
right.
And I think a few things that we also mentioned. that kind of contributes to that negative view of what a gamer is. Whatever. What are your thoughts on this whole aspect?
Well, I think to an extent, almost every occupation, if you mention the occupation itself, you have like a mind's eye version, right? Like if you think of like a miner, right? You're instantly thinking of a dude black with suit, got a miner's helmet on. You think of like a janitor, you're thinking of like the blue coveralls and like taking the trash out and stuff like that. So I think it's very easy to fall into these kind of like
stereotypes,
like stereotypes and like pre-foreseen, like, oh, this is all your life is, right? And there's so much more to that on any level, not just like esports or like gaming in general. But there's definitely is like a stigmatism towards gamers in particular, especially in like modern age of like, it's almost like the worst of like any type of group of people is brought as like, oh, well, that's what they all are, right?
And for those of you maybe listening, scratching your head of like, we don't know what you're talking about, because maybe for whatever reason you never watched a South Park episode on the World of Warcraft. If you haven't watched that episode, please pause this. Matter of fact, no, keep listening. But at least at some point, watch that episode.
It's a doozy.
It's literally, they single-handedly in 30 minutes stereotype an entire gaming profession, hobby, whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it. They single-handedly did that, and it has stuck like glue since then.
I think the magical thing of that episode, and I know that we're kind of honing on this, is it's not entirely false.
It's not.
It's not entirely false into the same way that you think of like someone in like the mining profession, to get back to that, is like, oh, that's a man covered in black suit and he's got the mining helmet on, even though there's, way more to that type of career path.
I know there's some Pirate City folk out there asking like, what the hell is suit?
Suit, I was gonna say reach up in your chimney, but like some people might not have chimneys, so
the stuff underneath your skillet as you fry.
Yeah.
That's a good city term of knowing what suit is. If for some reason you can't understand why your skillet is turning black.
I'm a product of my upbringing, so I just assumed, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was thinking to myself, like, I know what suit is, but ironically, I know what suit is because of video games I've played. Not because I've ever experienced suits. I've never experienced suits in my day-to-day life living in New York. Like, I just don't walk around like, oh, let me clean up this suit.
To that, I remember a specific scenario in chemistry class in the 7th grade. I knew how bronze was made because I played RuneScape.
Like, your teacher thinks that you're so ahead of the game, like, oh my god, this guy's a genius. No, I just play RuneScape for 5 hours a day.
Just video games, man.
You have to melt it, you have to put it into a bar, then you have to shape it into the shape you want. That's how you make armor.
Pretty spot on, yeah.
So for those of you who haven't watched that episode, I'm gonna give a light description. Imagine an overweight child, full of pimples, often with bad posture, spending 8, 9, 10 hours in a basement, not seeing the light of day, basically having no friends outside of the 300 or 400 people he may know from an online community, spending his mom's parents' money on online content, basically being a pariah, and then insert 10 more layers of negative aspects, and that's what that South Park episode is.
That's pretty accurate, yeah.
Now, ironically, though, the South Park episode also, though, does tie in a lot of positive aspects to the gaming community, which is having very, how do I say this? Things in common with people.
I think what you're trying to say is it's very community driven.
Yes.
Like it's very easy to relate with people while both focusing on the same hobby, right?
While killing sheep.
Right, yeah. I mean, something as crazy as like, oh, I'm going to try to level up by just killing this one specific character. You can kind of fall into an area where you meet people with the same goals, and you can really make kind of like it's weird. Like
you can have friends,
lifelong relationships
with people that you would never meet,
never met.
Yeah, like you would never run into this person in a lifetime. You'll never run into this person, not because you don't have commonalities, not because you don't look the same. It's just because of the distance between these people. And some of these people may live in Appalachia. I don't even know if that's a real place, but
no, it is. I'm there.
Some people may live in Europe. Some people may live in Asia. It doesn't matter. But you'll never run into these people and never get the opportunity to. And even if you do, chances are, because they may look different, because they may speak a different language, you may not approach them. You might say, "Hey, listen, you're Skoot. Like, what's up?" Like I'm Casper. Remember me? Like, hey, what's up? How you doing? We'll never get that opportunity. But because of the nature of the hobby, because of the nature of the game, you're able to meet so many new people. People who have similar interests, who do similar things to you, and just gain a certain level of networking community that otherwise you would never experience.
I would go so far to say it's the modern day knitting circle.
Wow. Knitting circle.
I mean, you think like way back in the times of we first came to America and the old biddies got together and knit some stuff, man. It's a modern day knitting circle, just gender reversed.
I'll do one better. I'll do one better.
I'd love to hear it.
It's the cooler version of a book club.
No, that's accurate.
Because I think modernly, there's still book clubs. People still do book clubs, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's all ebooks now.
Because now, see, people who do, and I don't know shit about a book club, but I think what it was is that everyone reads a chapter and then they meet up in the weekend and be like, "Hey, so how did that chapter go? Oh, it was awesome. I like how Betty did this, right?" But this is different. This is now you have your community now can be all in the same room, but not in the same room. And we're all talking about that raid we ran last week, or what we're about to run this week, or that competition is coming up, and we all mean like, yeah, what are we gonna do about this? All right, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that.
More common for you and I type of setting is, what game are we buying this week?
Oh man, that touches home, bro. That touches. Just for any one of our buddies out there listening to this episode, I just gotta say this. This is the way. I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm not gonna go into details. If you're listening out there and you know what that means, you just give it a thumbs up, whatever. But yes, deciding what new game out there, or what book, if you want to put it in those terms, should we buy next? Should we enjoy next as a community? What should we what adventure or what direction should we scoot in? Making that decision as a group instead of as an individual. And sometimes it's done as an individual. One individual will be brave enough to buy that book or game and be like, all right, let me test this out, see what's, and then relay it back to the group. I'm like, hey guys, fuck that old shit. Let's pick up this new one. This is awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's a really, really good example of, both the positive and the negative stigma. Really, I mean, it's like you have that sense of community, and you have like the book club effect, right? But also you have the wrong side of the stigma in the sense of like, you're all seen as being these lazy basement dwelling, like never
goblins.
Yeah, goblins, really. Yeah.
Like and it's sickening because like in any given moment and in any circle, like these, you see a wide array of like professionals. You know, some of my good friends they're electricians, they're plumbers, they have businesses, some work at the airports, some work in social services. And so you just don't know they do this. They're not out there like, oh yeah, stroke, pet me, not stroke my ego. Like, this is what I do. Da, 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 da.
We're raiding Orgrimmar this weekend. You don't want to hear that from your plumber.
Yeah, like it'd be weird if my plumber comes in and be like, "Hey, did you catch a new update of that video game?" Like, it's kind of crazy. And I think one day that will be it. That's going to be the new norm.
I mean, that's modernized entertainment.
Yeah, I think it's just not right now. I think I'll find it weird.
Yeah.
If my plumber just start talking about the new raid on World of Warcraft, I'm like, wait, what? Wait.
And I'd love my plumbers to talk about it.
So
I think that's just like an occupational disconnect, though.
Is this related to how you gonna unplug this thing? Like, what's going on there? No, I mean I think it's that stigma though. It's very hard to break out of, like any other stigma.
I wouldn't say it's not. I would say it's not only hard to break out of in the sense of you don't want to catch yourself like falling into these certain stereotypes, because I think everybody wants at their core to be an individual, but it's also very hard to break out of in the sense of, say, I'm not this basement dwelling, hot pocket eating, lack of motivation type of person.
Just for reference, the last time I had a hot pocket has been years ago. Okay,
I had a hot pocket on Tuesday, but it was against my will.
You ain't doing nothing against the culture, man. Jesus,
it was against my will, man. I didn't have nothing else. Didn't have nothing else to work with.
You ain't doing nothing for the stigma. Go ahead, continue.
But it's hard to break out of that stigma in the sense of it being seen as more than that, especially when you start telling what your occupation is.
Yeah,
you have instances where, like I mentioned in the last episode, where you have instances where it'll stimulate that further conversation in a first time meeting kind of instance. But it's very hard to get past that in the sense of being seen for more than what your occupation is. It bleeds
into everyday conversation. It bleeds into everyday just being in a room, and even it affects my personal ability to communicate with certain people, because if I'm in a room, let's say all my coworkers, and we all talking about, oh, what did you do this weekend? I fucking hate this question, bro. Right. Because I know what I did.
You don't want to say that you conquered Azeroth on the weekend. It's not going to make sense to 80% of the people. Yeah,
and it's just like, not only that, they're going to look at me like, okay, this guy's a weirdo. Then I'm going to be a social pariah. Then I'm going to be an outcast now, because now I don't have the common narrative with other real human that do laundry and the other shit. I mean, I do laundry too, so that's just my go-to one. I was like, oh, I just did laundry.
It's just way easier to go do something like a dungeon or like play a game of CS:GO or something while you're waiting on your clothes to dry.
Yeah, I mean,
it's all like choice of entertainment, right?
It really is. It really is. But once again, that stigma bleeds into everyday life. That sometimes, as a gamer, as a person who plays video games, you kind of don't want to share your accomplishments with people who are not part of that community, because you don't want to be judged. You don't want to be looked upon as that creature goblin from the basement.
Right. I mean, it's to give an insight into like my own personal life it's very hard. I wouldn't say it's very hard, but it is like an air of like awkwardness. In the sense of like, I tell my mother, oh, I played a tournament this weekend, right? It's I don't know. It's not like it's like a detriment or like a frowned upon thing, but it is like an era of like awkwardness. It's you know, I played a tournament this weekend, Mom. We went undefeated in qualifiers.
Are you still playing those video games? You need to stop that, Skoot.
Yeah, it's weird, right? I mean, it can be if you let it.
My mom
think-
still judges me.
I get a lot of judgment from my parents.
My mom,
even though I'm 27 years old,
Yeah.
27 years old, I own my own place and I'm
Yeah.
self sufficient. But it's
exactly.
Still,
I pay
it's
my
still
own
like,
rent.
that's our son that takes a break from actual work to go pursue video games, even though
My mom knows I have this podcast. She knows the side businesses I do. She knows the work I do. She even knows how much I get paid. Yet she's still reverse to stop playing video games. She still says that you spend too much time playing video games. And it's just like, Ma, like, everything else I achieve. Like, why?
You know what that means?
Yeah, like, why are you going back in your memory and all you see is me going home and playing video games as a deficit to what I've achieved so far?
You know what that means, though, Manny?
What?
They're gonna be real upset when we stick them in old people's home.
Oh, I've prepared my mom. I'm like, Ma, I'm sorry. You're gonna go into a home. I'm sorry. Like, my brother better prepare a room for you because my brother's over in Florida. It's like, he should have room for you. But in New York, I can't afford rent just for your apartment alone.
Yeah, you guys are dealing with like $3,000 for a studio or some shit, right?
Yes, it's pretty bad up here. It's pretty bad up here.
To give you context, I don't know. This is like way off topic of what we're talking about, but where I live, I'm taking over the family farm. My house is gonna be $600 a month.
You're just gonna be scooting along. Jesus Christ! There you go.
Three bedroom, 1 bath, baby. 80 acres.
And animals to feed.
Yeah, that's the downside. The animals to feed
and the shit to clean up. The animals is not too bad. It's the shit that you have to clean up. It's the shit.
Yeah, have you ever been on barn stall duty?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're going to be elbow deep in it, son.
I think country people have rural people. Maybe is that different between rural people and country people?
Well, I think it overall means the same thing. I think I'm not even entirely sure where I picked up the nomenclature of like rural.
Because rural cul-de-sacs is what I think about when I say rural. Cul-de-sacs, little townhomes for miles.
That's probably the same thing, really. Then.
So I guess where I draw the line as a city folk, when I say country, I'm thinking farms. I'm thinking 40-minute drives to the local store.
I think there is there's some truth to that, but I think it's more adamant about like the further west you get. I'm more centralized towards the eastern point. Like I live probably like 20 minutes from Ohio or West Virginia in Kentucky, and we have farms, but it's also like 5 miles to the closest like town, like central hub, right? I would still consider it rural, obviously, but it's still very country in the sense of like, yeah, we got dollar stores and stuff, but you're still looking at getting on the interstate to make it to Walmart.
Oh, okay. See, I have a Walmart. I have to get on the interstate to drive about 30 minutes to get to it, but that's only because that's the only nearest Walmart to the city. So
well, you've got like other stores.
Yeah.
That will fill that niche, right? Like we've got.
Right.
We don't. It's either a dollar store or Walmart.
So talking about this bleed through, and how it affects the everyday life. How exactly has it affected your relationships? I know I have a few examples, but I'll let you go first.
Well, you're talking about like already established relationships, correct?
Whatever things have you ended, things that are in the future. I don't know.
Well, I don't know how great of an example I am because I think we've all been young and dumb, right? Like I remember breaking up with girls when Christmas was coming out, so I didn't have to buy them a gift. Like that's how big of a
Pimp.
scumbag I used to be back in the day.
Pimp.
But no, I've been engaged previously. That didn't work out due to mutual agreements because of just different life choices.
Okay.
I was more focused on school at that time, so I'd taken a time off of gaming. So I wouldn't really attribute that more towards like the type of content creation and esports approach, more so rather than just two people that just didn't work out. I think it's very easy to let yourself fall into ruts, based off of that sense of like, oh, I'm spending all this time on X, and this is regardless of like the occupation, right? It's like I'm spending all my time on X thing that I just don't have time to deal with the whole like relationship aspect. And I think you do have to make a little bit of time for that, and also make a little bit of sacrifices. Like if I'm in an active relationship, currently I'm not in anything long term, it's more casual dating. But if I'm in an active relationship, like if it's a tournament weekend, I try to make it clear that like I just don't have a lot of time this weekend. Like I'm working, really. Like I never really treat it as in the sense of, oh, it's just a hobby thing coming up this weekend. It's like, no, it's a job. Like I'm working this weekend. Sorry, I can't make it.
Yeah. I mean, I think I can find myself in similar situations. Oftentimes, I can't use that convenient excuse. I can't sit there and tell her I'm working, cause she gonna look at me like, working? What the fuck you working? What the fuck you doing? You ain't working, motherfucker. Cause unfortunately, Rosie knows a little more about what I do and when I do it than maybe other situations. She knows that I don't play professionally. She knows that, it's just I can't use that convenient excuse. So oftentimes it's more of a like, please, can I just please play this fucking game for 3 hours? And just leave me alone for like 3 hours. And oftentimes she does. And she's more understandable now, 13 years in.
13 years in, she gets like...
Yeah.
She gets... And obviously, I've not met her, and I don't want to be speaking out of school, but she gets the need for like me time, right? Like I think that's a healthy thing in any relationship, is both participants have to have their own me time, right?
Right. I mean, I think it's increasingly even harder though, and at least I've noticed that within the last year or two, since we moved in together, because we're in each other's grills all the time,
Right.
It's kind of hard to carve out your me time, and oftentimes it just seems like you're just being selfish. Like you're being selfish playing a game for 3 hours. You're being selfish, talking to other people other than your spouse or your loved one. And
well, I hate to cut you off, but you like obviously like you're still doing like each individual like person needs their me time, but are you guys like actively coordinating your schedules to be able to do things together?
I wouldn't say coordinating. That's fucking like that's at least shows that you have some kind of intention.
Well, I mean, in the sense of like you guys are still like, we'll go to the movies on like a Thursday, or
like again, it's not intentional. It's more of just like, yeah, we haven't chilled in a while. Let's go do something. Let's go out to eat. Let's go to Walmart. See, for city people, going to Walmart, it's an adventure.
It's people watching, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get to see the people of Walmart.
Sometimes we don't even go buy anything. We just go and let's go to Walmart. You take a 30-minute drive. You go out to Walmart. I used to
do that in college. At college, we'd go to Walmart at 2 a.m. just go see what kind of people go to Walmart at 2 a.m.
Yeah, it's just something we do. But it's not intentional. We don't do it as like on our schedule, or we don't do it because we haven't done it in a while. It's just more of just like, it feels good.
This might be cultural differences, but I feel like if I was in a long-term relationship again, that I would like to not so much focus, but have date night, right? I feel like that would be healthy.
Well, so one of the things, ironically, that have come out of this podcast that we started doing is the fact that we have carved out time to spend with each other doing the podcast. And something that was honestly an unintended consequence where we found ourselves having conversations. We've talking about certain things about the podcast, content creating together, brainstorming, doing things offline, including the podcast, the website, the social medias, everything that we're doing.
Didn't you go to like a porn convention?
It was a sex expo. Yeah, so things like that, going to certain events. We got featured on a radio show here locally, where they came and interviewed us about our podcast, of what we're doing. So all these things that we're doing it together because of the podcast.
See,
so,
I love that you guys found something that you're both passionate in.
Yeah,
like,
and it's
content creation wise.
Right.
Yeah.
It was an unintended consequence. It's something that we didn't go into it doing like, yeah, doing this is gonna bring us together. We just did it because we just fucking do it, whatever. And that's what has shaped out now. Has it been all? Let's say, what I want to say. Has it all been beautiful and green lights? No, fuck no. We've fought countless. We have fought for like every little aspect of the podcast. We have fought for the colors. We have fought over the episodes names, the
what
description.
I'm hearing is Rosie didn't want you talking to old Skoot. She's just like, that guy ain't gonna bring nothing to the podcast.
Ironically, she leaves my Manpisodes alone. She leaves them alone. She criticizes the shit out of them. Like, every day. She listens to them. She's like, this is shit. What are you doing? This is garbage. But
I think from a certain point of view, though, that's good for growth.
Hey, man, I'm completely fine with my garbage. It's one of those things where it's like, it's my garbage. Don't touch it.
Fuck. To be fair, I said, man, I don't know how I feel about that podcast. Let's do another.
No, I mean, I think part of that though was, wow, that was a pretty good conversation. I wouldn't mind having another one. See, that's the way I look at it.
See, I'm very like perfectionist in my content. Like I want it to, like, not so much that I want it to be a certain way, but I want to make sure that both parties get everything they want out of it, right? Like I'm very neurotic in the sense of I want to make sure that we've explored all possibilities while we still have it hot on the table, right?
Yeah. I think to me, the one advantage to having a podcast called Flatulent Thoughts is the fact that you have the ability not to be serious.
Right. You get the opportunity to go down that rabbit hole and see where it leads.
Yeah, because it's like, it's at the end of the day, that's what inspired us to do the podcast is that ability to just have intentional brain farts. And just bask in it and kind of like, oh, well, this is where the fuck we're at right now. Like, I don't know. I don't know we got here, but we got here. And just have fun with it and really, and at the end of the day, like, one thing I look forward towards all my guests, regardless if they're on the main component of the show or they're on the Manpisodes side of things, is just for them to be organic and have fun. And at the end of the day, I can't ask for more. If we don't get through the topics, it's fucking whatever.
Well, I can say so far that I've thoroughly enjoyed being a member of the
You
podcast.
have scooted along
It's
in a well-mannered way.
It's a great experience. It really is.
So we talked a little bit about how it bleeds through the relationships.
Yeah.
Now, I think we also talked about this a little bit about you being in a rural area and I'm being in the city. But how does that actually manifest?
How does that impact like day-to-day life? Well,
so run me through a weekend for you, other than not a tournament weekend. Run me through a weekend, like Friday night,
non-tournament weekend. It kind of hinges on somebody's work schedules. Like I'm friends with a fair amount of people in my area. Just
how many?
But I mean, I'm still like, this is how like close knit rural setting is that, like I'm still friends with people from high school. I don't know how many people can say that like in a city setting.
Fuck high school people.
But like a lot of my close friends, I remember meeting them in kindergarten. So I think it comes down to like a statistical question of just how many people are in your area. A statistical question of just how many people are in your area, in the sense of like, you know, a lot of the people that you're going to find on like online dating sites or casual dating at bars and stuff are people that you've either met or they know people you know, kind of thing. It's I'd say like a regular casual night, if none of the guys are around or free, if they're working that weekend or spending time with their families, because at this day and age, you know, I'm 27 years old. A lot of my friends are either married or have kids, or you know, they're preoccupied. So I'd say 27. If I'm feeling up to it, I'll probably hit the bars on a Friday.
You said bars, like it's more than one.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a rural town of 6,000 people, but there's 2 bars.
Okay.
I'd hit the bars, strike up a conversation or two. I usually really like Saturdays for that, more so than Fridays, because there's at least live music, and that can be able to be like, oh, you know, I caught this band at so-and-so, and you can get a conversation.
I think that's a notable difference, too, and that you just touched on, is the fact that Saturdays is band night. In New York, every day is band night. Every day there's a fucking band playing. And it's one of those situations that's like, yeah, you gotta just deal with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Saturdays is band night in the sense of like, you know, Sundays they're all playing at church. So Saturdays is band night. Most of it's like bluegrass or country. Every now and then you'll be able to find a band going through town that's got a little bit more of like a rock setting. I would say though that like when it comes to like a casual dating approach, if you're not looking for anything super long term and not necessarily like a one night stand, a lot of that's going to be friends that you meet through friends, if that makes sense. Like most of my friends are married, but you know, say my buddy Kyle, for instance, say his wife has got a friend from work, and that they come out and we all go get drinks at the bar or something, right? Like that's an opportunity to meet new people. That would be probably like a good weekend, as you meet someone new, regardless of if it pursues into a further relationship. But a lot of it just really comes down to like the obstacles of having a work from home environment, is that you're not in a lot of situations where you do meet new people, regardless of if it pursues further into like a romantic setting.
Not only that, you can't use it as bait either.
Right.
You can't use like, well, I'm a fucking astronaut, and she'd be like, I throw my panty at you. You can't use that shit as an e-gamer. You'd be like, I'm a professional gamer. She gonna be like, this does nothing to me.
I think, as weird as it sounds, I think that would work better in a geographical setting of more urbanized, in a more urbanized like city setting, rather than out here in the sticks, where if you're not, I would say like our biggest occupations is truck driver and welder. So I know how to do both, but that's not my occupation.
That's I'm thinking about your question as far as like, is it better to use it in the city than? I don't know. I think that because of the mass amount of people in the city, I don't think you can pay attention enough to each individual, even in a bar setting or a club setting, to really care what the hell they do for a living.
I've never. You do you think a bar setting and a club setting is different?
Yeah.
I've never been to a club, so I don't know.
It's different. I think venue. So,
clubs are louder, right?
Yeah. Shit. So now, damn, and I'm feeling retarded now, because I just realized that I feel privileged in certain ways to know the difference. So we have like hookah lounge. We have regular lounges.
Okay, I think I've got an idea of what a hookah lounge is. Like, right.
So we have hookah lounges.
I know what a hookah is. So
right, we have hookah lounges or smoke lounges now, because they have now at certain levels they have marijuana that's legal, and some that's not legal but they still do it. So hookah and smoke lounges kind of bounce back
well,
and
I'll
forth.
tell you, we got that in the country too. We call that bonfires.
So now they have those, and then they have regular lounges where it's like light music. Most is like very comfortable seating. You kind of go in there. They might have finger foods, and you kind of just drink and just chill out with friends. Then they have bars. Bars are less comfortable seating, more stools, really big, just overhead bar, a few bartenders, and everyone's just kind of those are for people who are hardcore drinkers. They go in there to just drink. They're not really there for the social interaction as much as they're there for the drinking. Then you have the clubs. The clubs they have a designated spot for dancing. Mm-hmm. They have very limited seating, because most people should be dancing. They have a really big bar. And they have really like multiple levels at times, or they have like a VIP room, and they have maybe one floor is hip hop, one floor is rock, the next floor is Spanish music.
So, basically, what I'm grabbing from this conversation is clubs are basically strip clubs without the stripping, and the standing area is for dancing.
Yeah, I didn't even go into the strip club. I forgot about those too.
Well, we have strip clubs, but like, I'm just assuming.
Well, New York, they can't go naked. They can only do.
Oh, they can go whole hog here, dude.
Nah, New York is illegal to go full naked. They can only do like I guess underwear or taco. I call it Dorito string.
So what's the point?
I don't know.
Why would you even bother?
You got to go to Jersey or something.
You get better biology off of the internet.
For whatever, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, I've never been in a strip club in New York. I don't find it to be.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't. I find it to be stupid.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, they're expensive.
If I'm gonna drop $50 in this venue.
Dude, I remember I was in college. I dropped $500 in a weekend.
Oh Jesus Christ! If I'm dropping 50, because I'm a cheap ass guy. If I drop 50 on this venue, I want to see some pussy. Like, I just want to see it,
dude,
live.
That was half the fun, watching somebody drag their snatch across the fucking windshield or some shit.
I just
look
know,
like a sucker fish on the side of your fish tank trying to eat up that algae.
The pole wiping every session. So definitely. So there's that whole aspect. I don't know. I've never been experienced it. I don't know anything about that.
I tell you what, strip clubs are fun if you know where to go.
I think that's true. I think ATL right now, Atlanta has the throne on interesting.
Oh, no, I agree. I've been there. Yeah, it's wild.
Magic City and all those places.
I mean, none of that is super tied to occupational stuff. I think that's just a adjective, but for sure, Atlanta's wild.
I wouldn't mind doing it. I think I spoke to Rosie one time. I'm like, I don't mind doing an episode from one of those venues, just at least once from my phone.
You know, it would be cool, like a great episode idea.
Interview one of those girls.
Well, yeah, that too. Oh my god, that too. But I hadn't even thought of that. But a cool episode idea would be a multi-series of just different strip clubs in different areas of the U.S. Like you hit up Jersey, you hit up Atlanta, you hit up Nevada, like Las Vegas. Oh my, that's a good idea.
The pole
Take
search.
me with you.
The pole
Take
search.
me with you when you do it.
So I'm just thinking about, for some reason I keep thinking about Dave's sort of podcast, what it would be called. The pole search, the pole position.
American pole.
Oh man. That's it. I'm gonna have to put this somewhere in the description. So that being said, there's obviously big differences when it comes to New York. I think New York. Well, I think New York and just big cities in general have a certain amount of. There's certain amounts of like people not giving a fuck about other people.
Well, I think at its core is just I think it's just more people
That's
at its
true.
core.
You can't care about everyone.
Well, I mean, you look at a rural setting of like I mentioned earlier. I live in a town of 6,000 people. If you're looking on like Tinder or like Bumble or these dating apps,
Bumble.
you're maxing out that distance, like 100 miles radius.
It's not worth it though. Oh, wait,
But-
for you.
Yeah. So in my situation, you're maxing that out, like 100 miles radius from where you're at. You'll look at any women on a dating app, and the thing is, in a small area, 100 miles sounds like a lot to someone who lives in an urban setting, right? Like if you're living in New York, and 100 miles is a fucking long ways. But down here, 100 miles, that's just the fucking next town over. Like, you're looking at a lot of single moms, which and I know this sounds very shallow, but I'm not looking to be a stepdad even at the age of 27. That's just not something that interests me. I'm not very kid centric. So like that's it would have to be somebody who I connect with like at a personal level, like a personality wise, we just mesh together very well for me to even entertain the idea. And so let's just go ahead and say like 90%. That 90% that cuts out, right? So when you're not dealing with like single moms, you're dealing with people who either A, you don't find attractive, or B, is personality conflicts. So you're limited very heavily when it comes to online dating or app usage.
I'm curious how that conversation goes with a single mom of like, hey, I had a single mom. Like, yeah, well, I play professional games. Like,
well, it's
that's like
right.
One of those things
Right.
where it's like, yeah, we're not gonna.
That could almost be a sitcom in itself, right? It's like, oh, I play video games professionally, and oh, I'm a single mom that works at Waffle House or something, right?
I mean, at the end of the day, at least I know how to communicate with your child.
Yeah, it's like, hey, you want to play some Minecraft? But no, I mean it's. I think it goes back to like my ending statement of the last episode. It's like you have to know what.
Oh, so I don't know what the fuck that was about, but let's just continue where we left off. Audio problems, technicalities, guys. Don't hate us. We're doing the best we can.
Lead me back into what I was talking about.
So, I have no fucking idea, but we were talking basically about the rural and city differences, and how that impacts your dating capabilities within the apps of like expanding much larger range, dating people you possibly don't like,
Okay.
moms who are single parent moms, and yada yada yada.
Okay, so, all right, I think I know where we're at. On most dating apps or like online dating in general, you're maxing out that distance because that's literally just the town over, and you're having to weed out like a lot of like single moms, which more power to them. I think they're very strong individuals to be able to take that route. That's just not something that I'm looking for personally in a relationship dynamic. Not to say that like it would never happen, because I'm not a person of absolutes. It would be very it would be a stretch for me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So like I would say that's like 70 to 80% of like most of your matches on online dating.
That's a lot.
Is going to be like single moms or people who just have no concept of getting their shit together. And which I'm not really looking for. Like, I'm not looking to be like a tutor, I guess, when it comes to like adult dating, like
Or life.
Right. I mean, I think we're all I think when it comes to like from a dating aspect, we're all looking for like the person that is going to be the other half. Right? And I feel like if I'm having to lead you up to that, it's almost like conditioning at that point. which I'm not really looking to do. So like it's very hard to date in a rural setting in the sense of like you're in the country, you have 40, 30, 50 miles to the next town over, and you know.
When's the last time you've been to a city?
Define a city.
Fuck, I don't know.
Well, what would you consider a city? Like, do they got a mall?
No, I don't consider that a city.
Would you?
They got 20. Okay. They got 24-hour public transportation.
Oh fuck! I don't think I've ever been to one of those.
Okay. I think that's a very good standard to if this is a city or not, because most cities have
I think
that.
that's fair.
Yeah, they have that component, and it's usually it's a big signification of the population density.
Does Cincinnati have a public transportation?
I don't know. I've never been there. I don't know shit about it.
I've been there a time or two.
I think Cincinnati. No, I think they had their own football team. I think that's good enough.
Okay. Well, yeah, no, I've been to Cincinnati. That's like 3.5 hours away. Actually, the first time I ended up in Cincinnati on my own when I was of driving legal age I was going to a car show in Sparta, Kentucky, and I took the wrong exit and ended up in Cincinnati.
Have you ever did the dating scene, or not dating scene, but maybe like a club or a bar or whatever in Cincinnati? Like, have you experienced that difference? Like, oh shit, this is not what I'm used to.
Well, like I said earlier, like I've never been to a club.
Well, their version of a bar, I guess. Whatever. I don't know shit about Cincinnati, but whatever they have in Cincinnati that people do to get drunk.
I've been to Cincinnati a time or two. Never really fully explored the city.
Oh, okay.
So I would say I would call Lexington or Louisville a city. Actually, I don't think they have 24/7 public. I don't use public transport. Like, I drive, but I would say that they're probably a city.
Well, typically the reason I chose the public transportation as an example because
I understand. Yeah,
it's like when you have so many people and living in such a small area, not everyone can own a car. It's impossible. It's like there's not enough parking spots for these cars. So the need of that public transportation 24 hours becomes a very necessity.
No, I would say Lexington or Louisville is probably a city.
I don't know. We're not professionals. Whatever. Like,
yeah, I don't know, but no. I mean, I've done the Lexington bar crawls before. I would say probably it's been probably 2 years since I've done that.
Mm.
But I think a lot of me personally, my dating experience is mostly a little bit tailored more to home, I guess. My first long-term relationship was a girl I met in high school. We were engaged. We dated for 5 years, and that just didn't pan out. That's fair. And then my let's see. I've dated casually after that. I think my next real long-term relationship was in college. Dated a girl from a school close to where I live, but not super duper close. We met in college and through a friend of a friend, and that just never really panned out. So I don't know. I think in rural settings you're more tied towards where the sense of your dating pool is so much smaller that you're more often to kind of commit to super long-term relationships easily because there's just less people in the pool, I guess, if that makes sense.
I never considered that. I guess my I don't want to say privilege because it's not that I'm more privileged where I'm at. It's just
I think it's just geographical differences.
Yeah. I think it's that leads to different challenges and opportunities when it comes to dating that oftentimes we take for granted. But I will say that within those advantageous, whatever the fuck, there are also pitfalls where I think that are unique to each geographical setting where in your case, you said that, particularly you not having a choice whether to date certain people leads you to have longer term relationships. So you tend to stay in shitty situations longer. You tend to give people third, second, fifth, eighth, ninth chances while they're fucking up and doing certain things, where maybe in a city you may not do that. You may give them 1 or 2 chances, but after that, screw you, I'm gonna find someone else.
Well, I mean, it's, if you look back, like, historically, like, you think of, like, the Bible Belt, for instance, right? Like, super country setting. Like, how many stories have you heard from, like, the Bible Belt of people getting married right out of high school, right? And I've seen that, like, on a personal level. Like, I know people that, like, I went to high school with, that they got married straight out of high school. Like after they graduated in... Like let's say we graduated in May. I know people that got married in June.
In the cities, the other way around. Like if you were a high school sweetheart and you were still dating, you are like a god amongst.
It was like it was abnormal, right? Like,
yeah, it's like, oh
different.
my god, how are you still doing it? Like most of my friends who were high school sweethearts are they've already had their kids, they're already divorced, they're already like on to the next thing now. That it's very little of them are still dating the same person.
It's a very different like scenario.
So I want to touch on 2 things before I forget. So the first thing I want to touch on is something that's underlining everything we're talking about, and it is that difference of and I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna butcher this word, but anonymity. So basically, not being known.
Okay.
Where I think you, in a rural setting, you may not have that ability. Where, if, for example, if someone knows you as a gamer, the whole community knows you as a gamer, and versus a trucker or plumber or whatever the case may be. So
no, yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
And in the city, if I go to this one club and they know me as a bedwetter or a whatever, I can go.
In your bed for?
I'm just saying. I don't know what happens. Something happened. So then I go 2 blocks down, just 2 blocks. I mean, so 2 blocks. I guess in your field of reference is more like driving 10 minutes.
No, yeah, I know what 2 blocks.
Okay, but driving 10 minutes. You drive 10 minutes in any direction. Basically, that's approximately 2 blocks, and they don't know me now. That new location, no one knows me.
Yeah.
So
I think that's like the like you said, the anonymity.
Anonymity, whatever.
Yeah,
I think we're saying it correctly.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it's like there's so many people that the sheer focus on one individual is different, right?
I mean, unless you do something so crazy that for whatever reason someone screamed real sudden and they recorded you. If that happened, you were screwed for the next 2 weeks at the very least.
If you end up on WorldStar, like League.com, you fucked up.
Like, yeah, you gotta just change your name and get some plastic surgery or something. The other thing that I wanted to touch on that I think was very important, and I think honestly that thing is underlining a lot of what we're saying, is the fact that that need to. And I'm really having trouble really wording this. And I've been trying to, like, for the past 10, 20 minutes, kind of like, how do I turn this? Because there's no one phrase for it. But
okay.
It's like when you have no other choice but to date the 3 people who are around you. And no matter what you know about them, whether it's positive or negative, making a decision where it's like, well, either I'm going to be alone or I fuck my best friend's ex-brother's sister's girlfriend.
Right. I mean,
it's like...
I think a lot of that comes down to you have to deal with that on like a personal level, right? Like you have to think, okay, what am I willing to oversee kind of thing, right? Regardless of if it's like, you know, quote unquote, the bro code of you don't fuck your friend's ex kind of thing, right? It's like
I broke that code.
Beyond that, you have to look at it as what you're willing to overlook. It's even to go so far as to like, the whole being a stepdad at 27 kind of thing, right? It's like, what am I willing to overlook for like, do we really mesh together personality wise? Do we just get each other? Is it a matter of we're sexually compatible? Is it, you gotta weigh your pros and cons, and it's very weird to approach a relationship dynamic with those kind of ideas, right? It's like you're looking at it almost as like a business investment, but that's really what it is in your mid to late 20s. It's like, am I willing to invest years of my life in what are arguably would be your quote unquote prime for something that you're not inherently invested in?
So
right?
to bring it back a little bit for the whole gaming aspect of things, and this is less about relationships and more about community questions for you. And this is going to be an obvious answer, but I just want to ask. I want to get it out there, anyways. Is that one thing? And I think you mentioned this already in the last episode or something like that. I most probably will have an easier time finding a community of like-minded individuals than maybe you do. So, by that standard, have you ever come across a fellow gamer within your community of like, oh, Tommy, I never knew you played that game. That's crazy. Like, and meeting that kind of person versus not having ever that opportunity within your local area.
I don't think I'm understanding the question.
So have you ever run across or run into or had the chance to meet someone locally within your neighborhood? Well, I don't know neighborhood, but county or zip code area that also is considered a gamer or that does play games. Versus in a city, I'm sure I can just Google it and I can find a meeting spot.
As weird as it sounds to probably like an urban dynamic, a lot of the people that I've met over time locally that are into video games or content creation in that sense have been from my old high school. Of the sense of like, obviously I've met a handful of people from other areas, but I would say that predominantly it's more of just networking in the sense of like a younger brother of like a person I knew way back in the day kind of thing hits me up and is like, oh, I'm doing this, like I'm competing in this. I think the exception to that experience is a good friend of mine that I met in college that I actually I introduced him to PC gaming rather than like Xbox, right? He went on to play competitively for Cloud9, which is a very well-known organization. Yeah,
it's so popular that I'm familiar with it.
Yeah, like a friend of mine that I met in college that I introduced him to PC gaming. Like he had been playing nothing but like Halo on the Xbox. I introduced him to playing with a mouse and keyboard. He went on to play for Cloud9. And we're still friends to this day. Like I drove out to his house like a month ago. Like he lives like an hour and a half away from me. So yeah, the pool of people that you're going to meet locally that are interested in the same thing as you is going to be smaller in a rural setting, like in a country setting. But it's not non-existent, right? Like you're going to have like a couple outliers.
So I'm thinking of several things. That being said, do you find it, or do you ever look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, when I meet this person, when I come across this person, this unknown person, whether it's going to be at Walmart, whether it's going to be do you set rules for yourself of like what you're going to talk about, what you're not going to talk about, what you're not going to discuss on the first date, what you're not going to discuss in the first hour? Relationship
wise?
Socially.
Socially.
Because Because I think everything starts on a social level, then it evolves.
I mean, I'm a pretty open person, really. Like at its core, like
Do you wear a T-shirt saying my Twitch handle is Skoot?
No, I
Okay.
do not. Not that's a good merch idea, really, but no, I don't. I mean, I think more often than not, like my go-to, like I said in the last podcast, is or the last episode, is my go-to is like I'm pretty much a content creator. Like at my core, I'm an entertainer, but no, there is some things that I don't really talk about in the first day or two, right? It's like, or like in the get to know you phase is what I like to call it.
Right.
If you're meeting someone new and you're thinking, oh, they might be a relationship prospect, and I know that sounds very like scientific, and people really aren't at their core when it comes to relationship wise. It's if I think that there could ever be a relationship out of like meeting someone, there are some things that I just don't go directly into, right? Like it's like, oh, I try not to mention time investments really. I try to keep it pretty vague, like, oh, I'm working. Which that it's not that I'm ashamed of the work that I do. It's just it's easier to explain to someone who doesn't understand it yet. And I know that sounds kind of like shallow and pedantic in the sense of like,
It's your
oh,
style.
well, they're just not going to get it. But it's like, it's a lot easier to say, oh, I'm working on Thursday rather than, oh, I've got a stream that day. If that makes sense.
No, I mean, I think everyone lives their own truths. And I think they apply it based on whatever they see fit as like, this works for me. So this is where, for me in this in this space that I live in, this is what's true to me. And oftentimes we can't judge those that are doing certain things that they fit their working for them and has worked them, their experience, their personal life. Because at the end of the day, it's their life, it's their truth. It's not the same for me. It may not work for me.
To go so far into that whole dynamic in the sense of like most of like my networking in the sense of like relationship wise of like, oh, this is one of my friend's wife's friends at work that's wanting to get to know me or something like that. It's like I do that more so in like off time. Okay. Like if I'm not actively competing at the time and I'm just focusing on content, that's when I'm actively pursuing a relationship. Because when I am competing, there's just not a lot of time. There's just not enough time in the day,
right?
To be able to do, to be able to balance a relationship, to be able to balance work life in the sense of oh, I'm doing 2 hours of aim training in the morning. I'm doing VOD reviews of just watching back plays to figure out where I fucked up or where I did well, or to just do active scrim practice. There's just not enough time in the day to balance a relationship as well as pursue competitive esports in that sense without already being established in a relationship. Once I'm like, if I'm dating, if I am looking for like a long-term relationship at the time, and say it's an off day or an off month or something, right? And I'm not actively pursuing a competition like a tournament. And I struck up a conversation with a girl at the bar. It all going hunky dory. She's interested in what I do for a living, and she not instantly rejecting the lifestyle, right? And then say the next month, we've been casually dating on and off. We're looking to be exclusive, and a tournament comes up. I'll just be like, hey, I've got to kind of focus on work this month. Is it cool if we take like a back seat, or is it cool if we work around my schedule? Because, I'm not going to be able to practice on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, because that's predominant when most teams are going to be scrimming. So it's going to be either A, transitioning into more of like work day date nights, or it's going to be B, we'll just meet up in a month and see if we're still willing to pursue this relationship.
Yeah, so there's always that constant balance of like choosing dating,
right,
or being or pursuing your profession. And it's like that juggle of like, I don't know if I can do this, and you're doing it, and like every single time you look, you feel like you have one more ball to juggle, and one more activity to juggle, and then somehow you're trying to like, yo, this is getting kind of crazy out here.
And it's not to be so much that like, oh, you're pursuing work over relationships, and that's the end all be all. It's more.
But that's a reality, though. People do that.
Right. But it's not like that's the end goal. It's just, hey, I've got a lot on my plate, and this is what I have to do this month. Is I have to do A, B, and C to be able to get to point D. And if you're not willing to work around that, then let's just reapproach this in a set amount of time.
Yeah, I think it's a like a level of intention. I think it's not never a level of malicious intention of like, well, I don't want to give you attention because I just want to be an asshole and just go do my thing. It's just that if I'm true to who I am and what I'm passionate about, I can't give you that same time. I have to distribute it in a certain way.
Right, and I think it takes a level of maturity, and this isn't to like toot my own horn at all, but I think it takes a level of maturity of being like, hey, I've got to be able, I've got to focus on this. I've worked, like, before I met you, I've worked 6 months towards this, and if this is going to be a problem, then so be it, but I really wouldn't want it to be.
Not only that, I mean, let's be honest. Relationships put a very heavy toll of stress on individuals, especially when it's crunch time, whether it's work in the esports sector or to work in a human services sector or business sector or healthcare sector. You going to work every day with that drama of whatever happened last weekend, this weekend, yesterday morning, whatever the case may be, that shit affects your performance.
Oh, yeah.
That shit affects your performance, and oftentimes it's what makes or breaks certain athletes, regardless if they're esports or they're physical athletes, or they're just going to business to try to make that deal.
To dive into that, and I know this is going to sound super fucking bad of me, but to dive into that, when I'm coaching teams, I tell all my players, don't pursue a relationship while we're playing. I know that sounds awful, but I tell all my players, do not pursue a relationship while we're playing. Because of the fact that there's so much attention and there's so much... Because I'm the person that, like, I think all relationships are give and take. Like, I think everybody has to be... When you're in a relationship, you're on even ground in the sense of, like, hey, you're going to give up certain amount of time and you're going to give up certain amount of focus. That if I'm coaching a team, and I've said this multiple times over my career, is that if you're worried about, I know this sounds very crude, but if you're worried about pussy, you're not going to perform very well.
I don't think you can say pussy on this podcast.
Well, I mean,
that's the limit right there. We can't go that far. That's too much. Shit, I think there's so much shit. There's so much more shit we can talk about this topic. I think there's so much shit more that I think we can dive into. But I think the takeaway home, Jesus Christ, the takeaway from all of this is to really be considerate about the individual's situation. If they're trying to communicate with you about, yo, this is my expectations, this is what's going on, listen to them.
Right. I think communication is the key, right? Like, there's so many, I know this is a generalization, but there's so many, like, modern relationships where people just don't communicate to each other of their needs.
They're using their stupid phones and their stupid Instagram and posting their stupid breakfast in the morning and all this other shit. They're not paying attention to each other. They're not talking. They're not fuck, dude, there's just so much they're not doing. Yeah, that's my rant.
Right. No, I mean, and I think that comes with like, regardless of your occupation, you have like when it comes to relationships, especially something as time intensive or time demanding as esports, or working from home, or working office work where you're working a ton of overtime. It's like you have to be very vocal with your partner about what your time demands are, and be able to be a little bit flexible in the sense of making time for each other.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I hope that anyone who listens to the past 2 episodes really takes home is to realize that, at least at some basic level, there is no difference between a person who plays professional esports or video games, or those images with the controller thing, whatever generation you're part of that you describe video games. There is no difference between a person who plays video games professionally with a person who is an astronaut. Other than some education, there might be no big difference.
I mean, there's a fair bit.
I mean, besides some education and some ballsiness, there's not much difference.
I think they're both legitimate professions.
Right.
And the sooner that we get past that stigma of, an astronaut is like A1 of his class and such, and the video gamer is just a basement dweller. Like it.
Right.
We're all people. At Record, we're all people.
Not only that, we're multifaceted people, that we are doing several things at once at any given moment. And even though we're telling you, oh, we're playing video games right now, or we're recording right now, that doesn't mean that's all we're doing. It doesn't mean that's all that's in our minds. We're doing a bunch of other shit. It's just that, at this moment, this is what we're doing. But having that constant communication, I think, really opens up that ability to share those other things. I just want to thank you, Jared, for being such a tool of learning, both for me and other listeners. I mean, I've learned just with these last 2 episodes a lot of things about the video game industry and that whole aspect of that I didn't know before. And I'm a damn gamer, so it's like shit. Like, if I don't know it, I couldn't imagine someone who never picked up a controller or a mouse and keyboard to play video games knows about it. So I just want to thank you for being on. Once again, for those of you who want to follow Jared, aka Skoot, make sure to follow him on Twitch at SK00TN. That's SK00TN. His Twitter is also the same. Once again, he is the co-host for the upcoming podcast Crucible Cast. He's going to come back, he said, to tell us a little bit more about that. But we're not going to hold him to it. We're not going to get mad, but we might get a little mad. I ain't going to front.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait until I'm able to talk about that more.
Right.
And share that with your viewership and you as well. I think it's gonna be great.
So you heard it here. You heard it once and for all. He's gonna come back, and if we don't, we're gonna hit him up and be like, "Yo, what's up? But you're not coming. But you're not coming. What's going on?"
Feel free to spam me.
And most probably it's gonna be Rosie. Rosie is the one that takes care of most of that, and she's the one that spams people. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much, Derek, for coming on. Once again, this was episode 5 of the Manpisode series on Flatchman Thoughts. I think what title did we give it? We gave it Dating, a Cheat Code to Life.
Yeah, there we go.
Thank you so much and have a good one. See ya.